Family businesses usually, they're very empathetic. Some decisions are driven by emotions. That's why you need someone who talks to you strategically and by data to drive the decision.
Today's guest is Abrar Khodari, Head of Human Capital at Xenel Industries, who previously led HR partnerships across aviation and retail, and now drives governance and talent strategy as Secretary of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee.
What makes the Nomination and Remuneration Committee such a uniquely challenging committee to lead?
They deal with the two most complex things in life, people and money.
Sometimes some NRC members, they might even have a very impressive title, but they might not have the practical skills to make informed compensation decisions.
It's not just about the pay. It's multiple things that brings the value to the executive, to the company, and so on.
How can organizations ensure that independent members add true value to NRC discussions, not just prestige?
The involvement of the independent NRC should go beyond giving advice but educating the executives and have specification on what to educate.
In your point of view, what's an effective partnership between the head of HR and the NRC?
It should be a partnership. If it's too transactional, there will be no added value.
If you were going to design a learning journey for the NRC members, what topics or capabilities would you prioritize?
Let's just make a very, very important point that
Welcome to the ecap Rewards podcast mini-series, where today we explore how boards and their committees are evolving across the Gulf. I'm delighted to have with me Abrar Khodari, a highly respected HR head who is leading transformation in one of Saudi Arabia's most dynamic privately held conglomerates. Today, we will talk about the realities of board and NRC effectiveness, what works, what doesn't, and why developing true competency in this area is becoming critical for sustainable governance and competitiveness in the kingdom. But first, I would like Abrar to introduce herself to our audience.
I'm Abrar Khodari, Head of Human Capital at the moment in Xenel Industries. I was raised in the UK, moved to Saudi Arabia. I was one of the lucky ones, Sandrine, who were sponsored by Saudi Arabia to study abroad. I moved to Saudi 2010. I'm currently heading the HR, as you just mentioned. My experience is more than 15 years. Varying from retail, aviation, family businesses, and some others as well at the beginning of my career that I can't recall right now. But yeah, so at the moment in a transformation journey, and I would say what really defines me is transformational experience.
Yes. And I have to say for the audience, we have been working together for a year and a half now, and we have developed, I hope, a good friendship in that time. And it's been really a pleasure because you bring lots of fresh ideas to the world of HR. So you and I, we have often discussed how governance and human capital are deeply interconnected. So I would like to unpack some of those dynamics and how they play out in practice, especially when it comes to the role of the board, the NRC composition. So NRC for the audience is the Nomination, Remuneration and Committee, and capability building. So my first question to you is, over the past few years, how have you seen the role of board committees evolve in Saudi Arabia, especially under Vision 2030?
In recent years, everything is developing, Sandrine, with, as you said, Vision 2030. So when we come to human capital, when we talk about the business, when we talk about the economy in Saudi Arabia, everything is evolving. So, and that actually have its impact on committees and remunerations and compensation and even talent who comes to Saudi Arabia. Specifically in NRCs, the maturer you become in a country, the maturer the committees has to evolve. The success of committees is basically the success of a company or a business. They literally they align the governance, the compensation, how they attract talents, and one of the most important assets in any company is people.
So in your experience, what makes the Nomination and Remuneration Committee such a uniquely challenging committee to lead or to support?
They deal with the two most complex things in life, people and money.
Yes. Yes.
So it is very challenging, specifically when it comes to understanding what's the need of the company, where the company is heading, what's the vision of the company. The challenges lays in understanding what's compensation and how they link it to people and business. Different companies have different challenges when it comes to NRCs. You have the listed companies, they're usually very governed and they're usually very public, so you need all the information to be very aligned, and it's different than, let's say, international companies, family business owned companies. Each one has its own diverse. Data is one of the challenges that we face in NRCs, and human capital as well, to be honest, and access to advisors who understand our region. Whether, even if you're in a public listed company or an international company or a family business or whatever, or a private company, those advisors who really understand what's the dynamic, what's going on. You have PIF as companies doing great, succeeding, attracting talents. So how can we compete? Does that advisor come and provide this insight? So I think this is one of many challenges that NRCs face. And also maturity of members, maturity of whether it's the members who are with a human capital background or those without a human capital background. So I guess it's one of the challenges that people like you and ecap need to address.
Yeah, we try. So yeah, it's true. One of the things that I have seen in my previous experience, I've been an NRC member in supporting another privately held conglomerate back in Saudi Arabia. I've also attended board meetings, both on the management side when I was still in the corporate world with Majid Al Futtaim, and on the, let's say, board side, advising the board in Mubadala. And it's true that the needs of a privately owned organization are always going to be very different from those of a publicly listed organization. But also one thing that I think is a little bit difficult to apprehend for people who are outside of the GCC, this specific cultural understanding of the dynamics of the region, which is going to be very important. And so I think that leads very well into our second, let's say, point. You have said that sometimes some NRC members, they might even have a very impressive title, but they might not have the practical skills to make informed compensation decisions, because not all NRC members have been in HR or have even been having any kind of total rewards experience. So what type of capability gaps do you most often observe?
So I think it's the strategic insights, how they link compensation, culture, and the human aspect in any company with the long-term vision. What are the values that the compensation, how to retain, and all that strategically in the long term.
Yeah.
So the strategic insight, the understanding of the modern compensation, because it's not just about the pay or the cash. It's multiple things that brings the value to the executive, to the company, and so on.
Also, for me, the way I see it, sometimes you see people who rely on their past experience, but never been formally trained. And so sometimes they don't have like the framework that helps them to make informed decisions.
True. Absolutely. And with the culture, we have some sort of embarrassment, let's say, or shyness to ask about, like, how can I learn? Or, so it's, they just tend to learn through the journey quietly.
Yes.
Rather than proactively try to seek learnings and understand. Maybe, Sandrine, the question I'd ask, how could the chief of HR help in that?
Yeah, I think there's a role for the CHRO and for independent advisors to educate the board members, especially the NRC committee members, for them to fully understand how compensation ties into the strategy of the organization, and how, yes, it's a large cost, but it's also an investment.
Yeah.
If you only approach it from a cost point of view, all you want to do is reduce it. If you see it as an investment, what you want to maximize is the return. And those are completely different approaches. They will drive different ways of thinking about employees.
Behaviors.
Yes, exactly. And how management, therefore, the CEO, once he is mandated to deploy certain, let's say, forms of incentives or new organizations is going to drive in a different direction. And I think this is maybe, in my opinion, the part where we in the HR community, whether we're CHROs or heads of HR, or we are professional rewards people who are inside the company and preparing the meeting with the NRC or the independent advisor, then that makes it more relevant for us to educate them without me being so blatant as to telling them, oh, you don't know, therefore I need to tell you, in order to respect this aspect of the culture. I think another thing is maybe that there isn't much in terms of the evaluation of the board committee members that also looks into their technical ability. And the evaluation not to see as performance, but to identify those gaps and then put them on a learning journey, because nobody knows everything.
Yep.
I've been doing comp and ben for 30 years. I'm still learning stuff about compensation and benefits.
And it's evolving, right?
It's always changing, yes.
Yeah.
And each company being different, you need to learn new things in order to keep yourself abreast.
Yep.
So maybe my next question then goes about the independent NRC members. So those who are not necessarily part of the company already. So how can organizations ensure that independent members have true value to NRC discussions, not just prestige?
The first thing should happen to an independent board member is onboarding. It's very important, very critical for the journey, for a successful journey, actually. Understanding what does the company wants from the independent board member and what do they want to achieve. You will be surprised how much people don't understand what does the company wants. What is the objective of the committee? Once you know that, then you can actually do the right selection of the independent board member.
Yes.
And with the modern compensation, maybe it's not compensation, maybe it's the culture that you need to fix to attract the right executives, the empowerment, the authority, and so on. And maybe the involvement of the independent NRC should go beyond just, giving advice, but educating the executives and have specification on what to educate.
Would you have an example of a great independent NRC member that you've seen and what made them effective?
I'm not going to drop names, but let's say what makes them special and what makes them successful, I believe, is basically they would have either background in compensation or have the experience of managing B&L organization transformation and going through that journey and really spending the time to understand what does the company wants, what's the direction of the company, and going into the committee with all the experience, wanting to learn and give, at least from the people I have in my mind.
And I think I know one or two of those people, and I agree. I think is this mindset of being curious, wanting to fully understand what's needed for the organization, and not being scared of expressing those to try and give a better outcome for the organization through a better alignment of the HR agenda and the compensation to the rest of the organization. I think what I've seen as well, for me personally, is an evolution in the role of the NRC, which was initially very, very focused just on CEO compensation, and then went to executive compensation. So that was the CEO with N-1s, or depending on the size of the company, sometimes N-2, and then let's go into more broad human capital issues.
Absolutely.
Because the future of the organization, we see that with AI at the moment, the future of the organization, there's the machines, there's the processes, but the human aspect is very, very important as well.
Absolutely.